Hey guys, tonight we slink into the murky, torchlit alleys of medieval Europe, where shadows cast long, jagged webs across cobblestones, and the life of an assassin is as romantic as a soggy loaf of bread. You're not some cloaked hero gliding through moonlit castles. You're a desperate soul, one bad decision away from a noose or a ditch. The air smells of damp straw and suspicion, and every creak of a floorboard could be your last. Being a medieval assassin isn't cool. It's a brutal, lonely grind, and you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always wild to see who's joining us across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not choosing this life because it's glamorous. No one wakes up thinking, I'd love to hide in a barrel of fish for 3 days to stab a duke. Assassins in the Middle Ages were the dregs of society. Peasants who lost their land, soldiers who deserted, or thieves with a knack for not getting caught. If you had a goat or a patch of dirt to your name, you'd be hiring killers, not becoming one. But here you are, out of options, with a growling stomach and a whispered offer, a name, a target, and a pouch of coins that might not even come. The job isn't just risky, it's a one-way ticket to a short life. Most assassins don't retire. They vanish, either into the night or a shallow grave. The targets aren't easy either. You're not sneaking up on some drunken farmer. It's a bishop with a private army, a baron behind a moat, or a lord with guards who'd rather skewer you than ask questions. The pay sounds tempting when you're starving, but it's never enough for the nightmares or the fleas you pick up hiding in haystacks. And perks? Forget it. There's no Assassin's Guild throwing you a welcome party, no pension plan, no Employee of the Month plaque. You can't even brag about your work over a tankard of ale, unless you want the whole tavern pointing and whispering, "That's the guy who knifed the Earl." Yeah, good luck with that. Historians still argue whether assassins were mostly desperate loners or part of shadowy networks pulling strings for kings. The truth likely depends on the job. Some were hired by nobles. Others were just opportunistic cutthroats. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval contracts were sealed with a loaf of bread, broken in half to symbolize the deal. Break the deal, and you might find yourself broken too. You don't get to be picky. Someone slides a coin across a grimy table, and you're off. Cloak pulled tight, heart pounding like a war drum. The castle looms ahead, its walls bristling with danger. You're not a legend. You're just trying to eat. And honestly, that's the only thing keeping your boots moving forward. Let's be real. You're not trained for this. There's no secret monastery where grizzled masters teach you the art of silent killing. You're learning on the job. And your first lesson is, don't die. Every step is a gamble. Slip on a wet stone, sneeze at the wrong moment, and you're done. The closest you get to training is remembering how a thief once showed you how to pick a lock before he got hanged. You're not James Bond with a medieval makeover. You're just a guy with a dagger and a bad feeling about this. The world doesn't care about your story. You're a footnote, a shadow that makes people flinch. And if you're lucky enough to survive your first job, you're already wondering if the coins are worth the blood on your hands. Spoiler, they're not. But you keep going, because what else is there? The life you had is gone, and all you've got left is the next target, the next coin, and the hope you don't end up as the next body in the river. You're fumbling in the dim glow of a flickering candle, your fingers tracing the edge of a dull blade that's more rust than steel, wondering if this is really how it all starts. There's no wise old sage perched on a misty mountain, droning on about balance and precision while flutes play in the background. Nope. Your education is a crash course in survival, pieced together from scraps of bad luck and worse decisions. You pick up tricks by sheer accident, like how to muffle your footsteps on creaky wooden floors after nearly tumbling into a guard's lap during your first botched attempt. It's all trial and error, heavy on the error, and every mistake leaves a scar or a close call that makes your heart stutter like a faulty engine. Picture this. You're clinging to a rain-slicked ledge outside a noble's window, the wind whipping your cloak like it's trying to give away your position. No one taught you how to scale that wall. You just remembered watching a cat do something similar once and figured, why not? If you had any military background, maybe from some forgotten skirmish where you learned to grip a knife without slicing your thumb, that's a bonus. But for most of you, stabbing seems straightforward until the target twists at the last second, and suddenly you're scrambling away with a shallow cut and a lifetime of regret. Luck isn't your ally, it's your only teacher, and it's a harsh one, doling out lessons in bruises and near misses. Poison. That's another gamble you figure out alone, mixing herbs in a dingy corner of an abandoned hut, hoping the brew doesn't backfire and leave you foaming at the mouth instead. You test it on a rat first, watching it twitch and go still. But humans are trickier, too much, and they just get queasy and call for more guards. Too little, and you've wasted your one shot. There's no hotline to call for advice, no ancient scroll with recipes. You improvise, whispering prayers to whatever saint might listen to outcasts like you. And weapons? Forget fancy gadgets. Your dagger is pilfered from a sleeping sentry. Maybe a wire for strangling if you're feeling bold, but nothing that jingles or shines. You learn to hide it all under your rags, practicing quick draws in the mirror of a muddy puddle. Historians still argue whether some assassins received informal guidance from criminal rings, like thieves' guilds in bustling cities, or if it was purely solitary chaos. A mainstream fact, records from the 14th century show that many killers were ex-mercenaries, hardened by wars like the 100 Years' conflict, bringing battlefield skills to shadowy deeds. On the quirky side, there's a fringe tale from old chronicles about an assassin who supposedly trained by shadowing wolves in the forest, learning stealth from their hunts. Probably just a tall story to spook villagers, but hey, desperation breeds weird ideas. You're not building skills in a safe space. Every job is a pop quiz where failing means a public execution or worse. Sneak into the wrong room and you're face to face with a startled maid who screams bloody murder. Or you misjudge a patrol route, ending up cornered in a pantry, heart racing as boots thud closer. It's all about adapting on the fly, climbing vines that snap under your weight, dodging dogs with a whiff of meat you swiped earlier. And the joke's on you. Imagine thinking you're stealthy, only to trip over a chamber pot and announce your arrival with a clang that echoes like a bad punchline. Yeah, that's your life now. Comedic in hindsight, terrifying in the moment. Success comes not from mastery, but from not dying long enough to get better. You start noticing patterns. Nobles sleep lightly, servants gossip endlessly, and shadows are your best friend until moonlight betrays you. But there's no graduation, no pat on the back, just the creeping dread that next time, luck might run out. You huddle in a damp alley after a narrow escape, wiping sweat from your brow, realizing this training has turned you into something feral, always scanning for exits, always listening for footsteps. It's exhausting, this constant vigilance, like living with one eye open even in sleep. And sleep? That's a luxury, haunted by faces you've ended or almost ended. Weapons evolve in your hands through necessity. That dagger gets sharpened on stones you find by rivers, its edge honed by fear rather than a blacksmith's forge. You experiment with garrotes made from old ropes, testing tension on branches until they snap cleanly. No manuals, no diagrams, just instinct and the cold sweat of improvisation. One time, you might snag a crossbow from a fallen guard, but smuggling it anywhere is a nightmare. It's too bulky, too noisy to load without alerting half the household. So you stick to basics, things that fit in a boot or sleeve, silent and swift. The mental toll creeps in slowly. You're alone with your thoughts, replaying botched moves, wondering if that guard's gasp was the last sound he made. No mentor to debrief with, no comrade to share a grim laugh. It's just you, the night, and the weight of what you've become. And let's crack another light one. You're the medieval version of a bad intern, learning by screwing up, except the boss is death, and HR is a hangman with a sense of humor. Quirky fringe bit. Some tales whisper of assassins, using bird calls as signals, mimicking owls to coordinate. Though if you try it and get a real owl responding, you're in for an awkward standoff. Mainstream history notes that by the Renaissance, some courts employed professional killers with rudimentary training. But in the true Middle Ages, it was amateur hour for most. Debate rages on whether this lack of structure made assassins more unpredictable or just shorter-lived. You don't care about debates. You're too busy surviving. Each night blends into the next, a haze of shadows and shallow breaths. You adapt or perish, simple as that. And as you slip into another darkened hall, blade ready, you can't help but chuckle softly at the absurdity. Here you are, untrained and terrified, playing at being death's apprentice. But the terror keeps you sharp, keeps you moving. Without it, you'd be just another forgotten soul in the annals of the desperate. You've barely caught your breath from that last narrow escape, the echo of guards' shouts still ringing faintly in your ears like a distant thunderstorm when the lure of payment pulls you back into the fray. It's all about the coin, isn't it? That shiny, clinking promise that whispers sweet nothings in your empty pockets, convincing you this job might finally turn things around. But oh, how it lies. You slink into a smoky tavern corner, eyes darting as a hooded figure slides a small pouch across the scarred wooden table. Half now, they say, the rest when it's done. You nod, feeling the weight of silver against your palm, cool and heavy, like false hope. It's enough to buy a hot meal, maybe a new cloak without holes. But deep down, you know it's a trap wrapped in temptation. The client isn't your friend. They're a shadow with secrets, hiring you for a deed too dirty for their own hands. You take the job, creep through the night, heart thudding softly like rain on a thatched roof, and somehow pull it off. A quick slash in the dark, a muffled gasp, and you're gone before the body hits the floor. Victory tastes like ash, though, because now comes the real risk, collecting the balance. You return to the rendezvous, a fog-shrouded bridge or an abandoned mill, only to find empty air and the rustle of leaves mocking your trust. They've vanished, or worse, left an ambush, a couple of thugs with clubs, ready to silence you cheaper than paying up. A knife in the ribs is their idea of severance pay, and you're left staggering away, clutching a wound and cursing your naivety. Even if they do show, the payout's a joke. You risked everything for what amounts to a few weeks' worth of bread and ale, barely covering the herbs you used to staunch your scrapes. And let's not forget the moral fleas biting at your conscience, hiding in ditches, replaying the kill in your mind, wondering if that baron had kids who'll now grow up fatherless. The coins don't wash away the stains, they just weigh you down, jingling like tiny accusations with every step. You learn fast to demand more upfront, haggling in whispers, but clients are slippery as eels, promising riches while plotting your end. One wrong word, and you're the loose thread they snip. Historians still argue whether medieval assassins operated on fixed rates or bartered per job, with some evidence suggesting ties to merchant guilds for funding high-profile hits. A mainstream fact: in the 13th century, during the reign of King Philip IV of France, court records reveal payments to shadowy figures for eliminating rivals, often in gold rather than silver, to avoid traceability. On the quirky fringe, there's an odd legend from Italian folklore about an assassin paid in cursed coins that supposedly brought misfortune to anyone who spent them. Probably just a tale to deter thieves, but imagine your payout turning your luck sourer than it already is. You can't sue for breach of contract, can you? Picture slinking into a magistrate's hall. Your Honor, Lord so-and-so owes me for that discreet throat-slitting last moon. Yeah, that'd go over like a lead balloon, landing you in chains faster than you can say betrayal. It's all whispers and nods, no receipts, no witnesses who'd live to testify. Some jobs are outright traps, political setups where you're sent after a decoy, only to walk into a nest of guards with your name already on their lips. Congratulations, you're the bait in someone else's scheme. And now the gallows beckon with a creak that sounds suspiciously like laughter. The broken promises pile up like autumn leaves, each one crunching underfoot as you move on to the next desperate gig. You start trusting no one, not the scribe who swears this hit will make you rich, not the informant who points out the target's habits for a cut. Everyone's got an angle, and yours is usually the sharp end. It shortens your nights, this paranoia, leaving you huddled in haylofts, counting coins that feel lighter than they should. And here's a light chuckle. You're like that guy who bets on a rigged dice game, always thinking this roll will be different, except the house is a castle, and losing means you're head on a pike. Not exactly comedy gold, but it keeps the edge off the terror. Worse still, some clients pay in full, but tag you as a threat afterward. You know too much. Who hired you? Why the target had to go? So they send another like you, a fresher face with steadier hands to tie up loose ends. You spot the signs, a shadow tailing you through the market, a tavern wench asking too many questions. It's a cycle of deceit where today's payday is tomorrow's death warrant. You learn to vanish after each job, changing towns like cloaks. But the weight of those coins drags you down, a constant reminder that nothing's free in this game. Even the allure fades over time. At first, the silver sparkles like starlight, promising a way out. A small farm, maybe, or a quiet life mending nets by the sea. But reality bites. Taxes eat half. Bribes to safe passage gobble more, and what's left buys fleeting comforts that taste hollow. You're chasing ghosts, really. Illusions of security in a world that chews up folks like you. And let's slip in another soft joke. It's ironic, isn't it? You're paid to end lives, but your own feels endlessly on credit, with interest accruing in blood and betrayal. Quirky tidbit? Some fringe accounts from Byzantine texts mention assassins paid in exotic spices instead of coin. Valuable, sure. But try bartering pepper for a horse when you're on the run. Mainstream history points to the assassins of the Hashashin order in the Levant, who were paid not just in gold, but in ideological loyalty during the Crusades, blending faith with finance. Debate lingers on whether European counterparts mirrored this or were purely mercenary. You don't ponder such things. You're too busy surviving the fallout. Each broken deal hardens you, turning trust into a relic you buried long ago. You move lighter now, coins sewn into hems rather than pouches, always ready to bolt. The night envelops you like an old friend, cool and indifferent, as you eye the next potential payer across a crowded inn. Will this one honor the deal? Probably not. But hunger growls, and so you lean in, whispering agreement, chasing that fleeting gleam once more. The cycle spins on, each payment a mirage that shimmers and dissolves, leaving you thirstier than before. You've become a ghost in your own story, defined by what you lack: loyalty, safety, peace. And as you slip away into the shadows again, the coins in your pocket feel less like reward and more like chains, binding you to this endless, deceptive dance. You've pocketed those dubious coins, the metallic tang still lingering on your fingertips like a bad omen, and now it's time to gear up, or what passes for it in your ragged existence. Forget the sleek arsenals from tales of chivalry. Your toolkit is a mishmash of pilfered junk, stuff you've scraped together from gutters, graveyards, and the occasional unlucky traveler. It's not about elegance. It's about what you can shove under your threadbare cloak without it clanking like a beggar's cup. A dagger, sure, but not some ornate relic. It's a notched blade you nicked from a blacksmith's scrap pile, its edge dulled from too many close shaves. Literally. You sharpen it on whetstones found by roadsides, grinding away under the cover of night, the rhythmic scrape blending with cricket chirps like a lullaby for the damned. Poison comes next, that fickle friend you brew in hidden spots, away from prying eyes. It's not the dramatic vial from stories, glowing mysteriously. It's a murky sludge of berries, roots, and whatever toxic weeds you forage, mashed in a stolen mortar with a pestle that's seen better days as a walking stick. Unreliable as a summer storm, it might drop your target in seconds or just give them a bellyache that makes them double their guards. You test it sparingly, on stray animals or, in desperate times, a sip yourself to gauge the burn, praying it doesn't turn on you mid-job. Ropes, handy for climbing or choking, but yours is frayed hemp from an old noose you cut down, knotted clumsily because who has time for sailor lessons? Tie it wrong, and you're dangling like a fool, muttering curses as it unravels. Bows are a rare luxury. If you snag one, it's probably warped from weather, arrows fletched with feathers plucked from roadside birds. Smuggling it past patrols is a nightmare, too long, too obvious, so you opt for slings or darts, improvised from pebbles and leather strips. Up close is your domain anyway, where a quick thrust matters more than aim. And backups? Laughable. If your blade snaps mid-strike, you grab whatever's handy. A loose brick, a candlestick, even a shard of glass from a broken window. Desperation turns everyday objects into weapons. A spoon twisted into a shank, a belt buckle filed sharp. You hide them cleverly, daggers in boots, vials in false hems, wires coiled in hair. It's all about concealment, because a jingle or bulge gives you away faster than a shout. Historians still argue whether assassins favored specific tools based on region, like Italian stilettos for precision versus English long daggers for brute force. A mainstream fact: archaeological finds from medieval sites, such as those in York, reveal small blades hidden in clothing remnants, suggesting common use among outlaws. For a quirky fringe note, some obscure manuscripts claim certain killers used cursed items, like daggers forged from executioners' tools, believed to carry ill omens. Superstition, sure. But in your world, every edge helps if it spooks the target. You maintain this sorry lot with whatever you scrounge. Oil from kitchen raids to prevent rust, rags to wrap handles for grip. No polishing ceremonies. You're too busy evading patrols. And the smell. Oh, the lingering odor of blood or herbs that clings no matter how you scrub in streams. It's a constant reminder that your gear isn't loyal. It can fail at the worst moment, like a rope snapping during a climb, or poison evaporating in heat. Improvisation becomes second nature, a thorny branch for a garrote, mud to camouflage shine. You adapt because you must, turning weaknesses into surprises, like using a hollowed apple to smuggle toxins past inspections. The weight of it all drags on you, literally and figuratively. Your cloak sags with hidden burdens, making every step a calculated shuffle to avoid noise. In crowded markets, you practice blending, but one wrong shift and a vial clinks, drawing eyes. It's exhausting, this constant awareness, like carrying your grave goods. And here's a gentle rib. You're armed to the teeth, yet half your weapons could double as kitchen utensils. Nothing says deadly like assassinating with a soup ladle gone rogue. Makes you wonder if the real skill is cooking up excuses when caught. Strangling tools evolve from necessity. A scarf turns lethal with a twist, silent and personal. You practice on dummies of bundled straw, timing breaths until it feels natural, but never too comfortable. Comfort breeds sloppiness. Poisons demand even more finesse. Measuring by eye, hoping the dose hits right. Too weak, and your mark survives angrier. Too strong, and fumes knock you out first. You carry antidotes sometimes. Bitter roots chewed preemptively, but they're as trustworthy as your clients. Gear betrayal stings deepest. A bent blade mid-thrust, a snapped string on a makeshift bow. You learn to inspect obsessively, fingers tracing edges in the dark. But fatigue creeps in, and oversights happen. In the field, it's chaos. You scale a wall with your rope, only for it to fray halfway. leaving you dangling like a piñata for archers. Or you dip an arrow in poison, but rain washes it clean before launch. Improvise. Snatch a guard's spear. Use it as a pole vault. Your toolkit reflects your life. Patchwork, precarious, pieced from ruins. No upgrades between jobs. If something breaks, you mourn briefly and steal anew. And let's chuckle softly. Imagine boasting about your arsenal to a knight. They'd laugh, but you'd outlive them in the shadows, where flashiness gets you killed. Fringe tales whisper of enchanted gear, like blades that never dull, forged in alchemists' fires. Pure fantasy, but you'd trade a kidney for one. Mainstream records from the Inquisition trials detail confiscated items. Small crossbows, vials of arsenic, proving that assassins relied on portability over power. Debate swirls on whether Eastern influences, via crusaders, introduced curved daggers to Europe, altering tactics. You ignore scholarly chatter. Survival's your scholar. Each piece of gear tells a story. A nick from a dodged sword, a stain from a failed brew. They're extensions of you, flawed and fierce. As dawn creeps, you stash it all, blending into daylight as a wanderer. But the burden lingers, a phantom weight reminding you're only as good as your tools, and they're barely good enough. You eye a passing cart, wondering what you could lift next, because in this game, preparation is prayer, and yours is whispered over scraps. The night calls again soon, and you'll arm up, hoping this cobbled mess sees you through. It has to. There's no other choice. You've stashed your makeshift arsenal, the faint clink of that pilfered dagger echoing softly in your mind like a distant bell toll. And now the real challenge looms ahead. The target themselves, those fortified souls who turn every assignment into a labyrinth of peril and paranoia. It's not some hapless wanderer you're after. It's a highborn with walls that bite back, guards who sleep with one eye open, and a network of eyes and ears that make the shadows feel crowded. You approach the castle under a blanket of stars, the moat's stagnant water murmuring below like a sleepy guardian, its surface rippling with unseen things that slither and snap. The air hangs heavy with the scent of torch smoke and wet earth. And you know this isn't just a hit. It's a puzzle where one wrong piece means you're the one scattered. Nobles aren't fools. They're survivors, in silk, surrounded by layers of defense that make your rusty blade feel like a toothpick against a mountain. First, the guards. Not a lazy pair dozing at the gate, but squads of armored brutes, their chainmail whispering with every patrol step, eyes sharp from ale-free shifts and promises of reward for spotting intruders like you. You spend nights watching from the tree line, timing their rounds. The one with the limp who pauses at the third turret. The archer who scratches his beard every quarter hour. Miss a beat, and you're skewered before you cross the drawbridge. Then the walls. Towering stone beasts pocked with arrow slits and murder holes, ready to rain boiling oil or crossbow bolts if you so much as peek. You imagine the sizzle of that oil on skin, a modern aside like dumping hot coffee, but with medieval malice, and it sends a chill deeper than the night air. Servants add another twist. They're everywhere, bustling like ants in a hive, noticing the unfamiliar face pretending to deliver firewood or mend a fence. One whisper from a suspicious cook, and the whole household buzzes with alarm faster than gossip at a village fair. You pose as one of them sometimes, apron stained with flour to hide blood if needed. But fumbling a task like naming the stable boy's horse blows your cover. And the target? Paranoid as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, sleeping in rotated chambers, eating only after tasters sample every bite. They might use decoys, doubles in their bed while they hide in a secret alcove, or surround themselves with dogs whose growls cut the silence like knives. Getting close means weeks of patience, bribing a maid with your scant coins, hiding in a supply wagon, or scaling ivy that tears at your hands like thorny accusations. Historians still argue whether noble paranoia stemmed more from political rivals or genuine assassin threats, with some pointing to eras like the Wars of the Roses, where backstabbing was literal. A mainstream fact: in 14th century France, King Charles VI employed food tasters and multiple bodyguards after surviving an assassination attempt, setting a trend among European courts. For a quirky fringe tidbit, old Welsh folklore tells of lords who kept pet ravens trained to caw at strangers, believing the birds could sense evil intent. Imagine your stealth ruined by a feathered snitch with a grudge. Feasts sound like opportunities, right? The mark drunk on wine, guards relaxed amid the merriment. But no, tankards clink, jesters tumble, and witnesses multiply like rabbits. You weave through the crowd, cloak brushing velvet gowns, but one spilled goblet or errant glance, and you're dragged out by your collar. The dogs sniff you first, hackles rising at your unfamiliar scent, or a jester's keen eye spots your hidden blade. It's a deadly dance, where your steps must be flawless amid the chaos. And let's ease in a soft joke. You're like that awkward guest at a party, trying to blend in. But instead of small talk, you're plotting a stab. Talk about killing the vibe. The paranoia feeds on itself. Targets hear rumors of shadows like you, bolstering defenses with more locks, more eyes, turning their homes into fortresses that mock your efforts. Escape routes complicate it further. You map them in your head, counting stairs that creak on the 7th step, doors that swing silently if oiled just right. But variables abound. A sudden rain turns paths to mud, slowing your flight. A servant's lantern swings your way at the worst moment. You practice in your mind, visualizing the dash to the outer wall, the leap into the moat where crocodiles. Wait, no, that's exotic. More like eels, or just the icy plunge that numbs your limbs. Success hinges on that one perfect moment. The target alone, guard distracted, your blade swift and silent. Botch it, and you're the spectacle. Hauled to the courtyard, a warning sign pinned to your chest like a macabre badge. The mental strain whispers constantly, like wind through battlements. You lie in wait for days, hunger gnawing, doubts creeping in. Is this worth it? The noble's life flashes before you. Power, wealth, things you'll never touch. It fuels resentment, steadies your hand, but also hesitation. What if they turn? Eyes meeting yours in that final instant. It's intimate, this work, closer than lovers in the dark. And another light chuckle. Paranoia makes them sleep with daggers under pillows, so you're interrupting armed bedtime stories. Once upon a time, there was a sneaky you, and it ended badly. Moats aren't just water. They're psychological barriers, forcing swims that leave you shivering, vulnerable to arrows, plunking like raindrops. Bridges rise at dusk, gates bar with iron that groans in protest. You might tunnel under, dirt caking your face, but cave-ins lurk, or counter-diggers meet you with shovels turned weapons. It's a game of cat and mouse, where you're the mouse dreaming of cheese that bites back. Festivals or hunts offer openings, but crowds mean more eyes, more variables, like a stray child spotting your cloak's bulge. In the end, it's endurance that wins or loses. You outweight their vigilance, strike when exhaustion dulls their edge. But victory's fleeting, alarms sound, pursuit follows. You flee into the woods, breath ragged, the puzzle solved, but the next one is waiting. And here's a gentle rib. Facing these setups, you feel like a bad locksmith. Picking locks is fine, but the real trick is not getting locked up yourself. The targets fight back not with swords alone, but with the fortress of their world, designed to crush interlopers like you. Yet you persist, drawn by that elusive coin, the thrill of the solve, even as the walls close in. The debate among scholars questions whether such defenses truly deterred assassins or just escalated the arms race of stealth versus security. Mainstream accounts from Venetian archives detail dog breeds like mastiffs bred specifically for noble protection. Fringe stories from the Scottish Highlands speak of lords using ghost wards, mirrors and bells to detect spirits, but really to catch human phantoms. You don't care. You're too deep in the maze. Senses attuned to every rustle, every flicker. The night deepens. The castle sleeps uneasily, and you creep closer, ready to unravel the puzzle or be unraveled by it. You've edged closer to those imposing walls, the chill of the moat seeping into your bones like a whisper from the grave. Heart sinking with the distant hoot of an owl that might just be another guard's signal. Now comes the art of vanishing in plain sight, wrapping yourself in layers of deception that feel as flimsy as autumn leaves. You're not striding in with a dramatic mask or tailored finery. Your disguise is whatever scraps the world discarded, a tattered peasant's tunic smelling of earth and sweat, or a monk's robe 2 sizes too large, its hood casting shadows that hide your twitchy eyes. The fabric itches against your skin, coarse and unforgiving, a constant reminder that blending in means embracing the grime of those you mimic. You limp slightly, faking an old wound to deter questions, your gait uneven like a cart on rutted roads, all while scanning for the slightest sign of suspicion. Blending isn't magic. It's a delicate balance of observation and imitation. You study the locals in marketplaces, noting how a farmer slouches under his burden, or a servant averts their gaze from betters. You adopt these traits, murmuring prayers if you're the monk, or haggling over turnips if you're the vendor, your voice pitched low and regional to avoid that telltale outsider lilt. But one slip, a wrong accent, a misplaced gesture, and the illusion shatters. Imagine adjusting your belt to conceal that dagger, only for the cheesecloth wrap to peek out, drawing a curious stare from a passerby. You're always teetering on exposure, like walking a tightrope over a pit of spikes, where a gust of wind or a child's pointing finger sends you tumbling. Inside the castle, it's worse. You pose as a lowly worker, hauling water or tending fires, but nobles' households buzz with familiarity. Servants know each other's faces, quirks, even the names of family pets. Fumble a chamber pot, or forget the cook's favorite curse, and whispers start. Who's that new one? Never seen him before. You're one awkward exchange from a candlestick to the skull, dragged to the guard captain while protesting innocence in a voice that cracks under pressure. Masks, rare and risky. A cloth over your face screams, leper or bandit. Great for scaring folks away, but useless for infiltration. Instead, you smear dirt on your cheeks for age, squint to alter your features, or glue a beard with tree sap. Sticky, uncomfortable, and prone to peeling at the worst moment, like during a bow to the Lord himself. Historians still argue whether disguises were more effective in urban crowds or rural isolation, with some evidence suggesting city anonymity aided assassins during events like the Italian Renaissance carnivals. A mainstream fact, in 15th century England, records from the Tower of London describe captured spies using peasant garb to infiltrate, often betrayed by finer undergarments that gave away their true status. For a quirky fringe tidbit, obscure Eastern European folklore speaks of killers donning skin suits made from animal hides enchanted to change appearance. Pure myth. But picture you itching in a wolf pelt, howling internally as it attracts every dog in the yard. Wigs don't exist in your toolkit. Hair dye from berries or soot is your best bet, turning your locks a muddy brown that runs in the rain like bad luck. You practice lines in solitude. I'm here to fix the thatch, or Brother Elias, at your service for alms. But delivery matters. Too eager, and you seem suspicious, too mumbling, and they prod for more. Parties or feasts offer cover amid the chaos, but staying in character for hours drains you, pretending interest in banal chatter while your eyes dart to the target. One wrong laugh at a joke, or a glance too long at the silverware, and you're done. And let slip in a soft jest. You're like a bad actor in a village play, fluffing lines, except the audience throws rotten fruit. Or worse, calls the executioner for an encore. The deception extends inward too. You bury your true self under layers of pretense, losing track of who you are amid the roles. A peasant today, a pilgrim tomorrow. It blurs, leaving you hollow, like a puppet with cut strings. Sensory overload hits hard. The roar of a banquet, the sting of smoke from hearths, the metallic tang of fear sweat under your disguise. You adjust constantly, tugging sleeves to hide scars, avoiding mirrors that might reflect the stranger you've become. Honey-glued beards. They work until a bee buzzes by, drawn to the sweetness, turning your stealth into a frantic SWAT fest. Modern aside, it's like wearing a Halloween costume to a job interview. Uncomfortable, sweaty, and one wardrobe malfunction from disaster. Even success in disguise breeds paranoia. You infiltrate, strike, but lingering too long invites scrutiny. A maid notices your boots are too clean for a beggar, or a guard recalls seeing you in another guise weeks ago. You bolt, shedding the costume in alleys, emerging as someone new, but the mental residue clings. Was that stable boy staring? Did the jester's quip hint at knowledge? It's exhausting, this perpetual performance, where applause is silence and boos are blades. Another light chuckle. Disguises make you a chameleon, but in medieval times, that just means blending with mud and misery, hardly the colourful life, unless you count the bruises. Nuns' habits or guard uniforms offer bold options, stolen from laundry lines, still warm from the previous owner's body heat. But ill-fitting armor clanks. Habits tangle in runs, turning escapes into comedic tangles. You learn to move fluidly, practicing in forests where trees don't judge your stumbles. The goal: 5 minutes of confusion, enough to get in, act, and ghost away. If spotted in the bishop's laundry, sword in hand, dressed as a sister, well, that's a feast day fiasco no one wants, least of all you, praying for a quick end over the humiliation. Deceptions aren't just visual. Scents matter. Rub in herbs to mask your unwashed state, or roll in hay for that authentic farm whiff. But overdo it, and you reek suspiciously of lavender in a dung heap world. Voices adapt too. Gravelly for the old man, meek for the servant. It's a full-body lie, taxing your nerves like a bowstring drawn taut. And one more gentle rib. You're the original method actor, living the role so deep that forgetting your real name isn't a bug. It's a feature for survival. The scholarly debate questions whether women assassins use disguises more effectively, leveraging societal blind spots like maid roles, though evidence is scarce. Mainstream chronicles from the Ottoman Empire note janissaries employing similar tactics against rivals. Fringe whispers from Iberian tales claim some used invisibility cloaks woven with spells. Nonsense. But in your fog-shrouded nights, you'd weave one if you could. You press on, roll intact, the castle's halls swallowing your steps. The deception holds for now, a fragile veil between you and the noose as you inch toward the mark, breath steady, lies woven tight. You've shed that ill-fitting disguise in a thorn-choked thicket, the fabric tearing like a sigh of relief. But the weight of isolation settles heavier than any cloak as you melt back into the night. There's no one waiting for you in the flickering firelight of a hidden camp. No comrade to slap your back and share a grim toast to survival. You're utterly alone in this, a solitary wraith drifting through a world that would sooner forget you exist. Trust. That's a fairy tale for children and fools. In your line, it's the quickest path to a blade in the back or a noose around the neck. You learn early that every face hides a potential betrayer, every whisper a setup. So you keep your distance, your secrets locked tighter than a miser's chest. The silence becomes your companion, cold and reliable, echoing like the empty halls you once prowled, reminding you that alliances are illusions in a game where everyone's expendable. Guilds sound romantic in tavern tales, brotherhoods of hooded figures swapping tips over ale, a network of safe houses and coded signals. But reality bites harder. If such groups exist, they're whispers on the wind, fragile as spiderwebs, and just as likely to ensnare you. You hear rumors of them in shadowed corners, fueled by too much mead and boredom. But approaching one means risking exposure. Why share your hard-won knowledge when a brother might sell you out for a better payday? You're more likely to cross paths with a rival killer by accident, eyes locking in mutual suspicion before you both slink away, unspoken threats hanging like fog. No handshakes, no pacts, just the understanding that in this shadow dance, partners step on toes and worse. Friends are a luxury you buried long ago, like that first pouch of blood money you never spent. They ask questions. Where those bruises came from, why you flinch at sudden noises, or what that stain on your cuff is. Lovers, even riskier. They notice the blade under your pillow, the way you sleep with boots on, ready to bolt. One tender moment, and you're vulnerable. A name whispered in passion, becoming a lead for hunters. You can't afford roots. Settling means recognition, a face in the market that someone remembers from a wanted sketch. So you drift, town to town, inn to inn, always the stranger in the darkest corner, back to the wall, eyes on the door like a hunted fox. You sip your ale sparingly, never enough to dull the edges, because oblivion invites ambush. The isolation gnaws at you, like hunger after days in hiding, turning inward until your thoughts echo louder than any crowd. You can't unburden your soul, confess the weight of that bishop's final gasp, or the child's cry that haunted your escape. Talk, and you're labeled mad or monstrous. People edge away, hands on hilts. Even fellow outlaws keep their distance. Thieves might joke over stolen loot, but you make folks disappear. They fear you as a bad omen, a walking curse that could draw torches and pitchforks to their den. No shared stew, no camaraderie, just wary nods and space wide as a chasm. You're the liability, the one whose job paints targets on everyone nearby. Historians still argue whether loose assassin networks existed in places like the Italian city-states, perhaps evolving from mercenary bands, or if solitude was the unbreakable rule across Europe. A mainstream fact: during the 12th century Crusades, the Hashashin order in the Middle East operated with a structured hierarchy, but European counterparts lacked such organization, relying on individual hires as seen in chronicles from the English courts. For a quirky fringe tidbit, some obscure Scandinavian sagas describe lone wolves who bonded with actual forest animals for companionship, claiming ravens as scouts. Romantic nonsense. But imagine your only ally being a bird that steals your breadcrumbs. The mental toll builds slowly, like frost creeping over a window pane, isolating you further. Nights blur into a haze of vigilance, scanning faces in crowds, avoiding eye contact that might linger too long. You change names like seasons. Today, Elias the Wanderer. Tomorrow, Thorn the Herbalist. Losing track until your true self feels like a ghost story you half remember. Sleep comes in fits, haunted by what-ifs. A knock at the door that's just the wind. A shadow that's merely a tree. You can't laugh freely, love deeply, or relax into a chair without plotting exits. It's a life halved, where human warmth is a spark that could ignite your downfall. And here's a gentle jest. You're so alone, your shadow starts looking suspicious. Maybe it's plotting to leave you too, tired of the constant running. Contacts are minimal, risky necessities. A client's greasy scribe might pass a message, but you meet in neutral spots, ruined chapels or midnight bridges, exchanging nods and pouches without words. Even they're expendable. One loose tongue, and you're planning their silence before they plan yours. No handlers with encouraging scrolls. No alchemists brewing potions in secret lairs. You're your everything. Scout, planner, executioner, escape artist. The freedom chafes, like ill-fitted boots on endless roads, leaving blisters on your soul. You envy the blacksmith's camaraderie, the farmer's family. But such thoughts are dangerous distractions, pulling you toward a normalcy that's forever barred. In taverns, you sit apart, ears tuned to gossip that might yield jobs or warnings. A bard's song about a vanished lord makes you smirk inwardly, your handiwork unclaimed. But sharing would be suicide. You pay with small coins, leave no trace, vanish before dawn. The road becomes your only constant, winding through forests where wolves howl like kindred spirits, or villages where lanterns flicker invitingly, but you pass by. Loneliness sharpens your edge, makes you faster, quieter, but it hollows you too, like a blade worn thin from overuse. Another soft chuckle. Isolation's your sidekick, silent and loyal. Unlike people, it never stabs you in the back, just slowly drains the color from your world. The absence of allies forces creativity. You rely on wits alone, forging notes to lure targets, using mirrors for rear views in alleys. But mistakes amplify in solitude. No one to watch your back, distract a guard, or pull you from a botch. A failed job means fleeing alone, wounds untended, feverish in ditches while pursuers close. You patch yourself with rags and willpower, whispering curses to the stars. And let's ease in one more rib. Without friends, your social life's limited to chatting with squirrels. They don't judge, but their advice on hiding spots is nuts. Debate rages on if some assassins form temporary packs for big hits, like during the French religious wars, though evidence is thin. Mainstream sources from Venetian diplomacy reveal lone operators hired for deniability. Fringe lore from Irish myths speaks of shadow kin, bound by blood oaths, invisible to all but each other. Poetic, but you'd settle for a real companion over fantasy. You press on, solitary shadow in a crowded world. The night your cloak, silence your shield. No allies means no betrayals, but also no warmth. No end to the echo of your footsteps alone. The next job calls and you answer, because in this void, purpose is all that remains. You've answered that silent call once more, slipping from your solitary perch into the enveloping dark, the crunch of leaves underfoot like a hushed warning that echoes your growing unease. But what if this time the shadows don't bend to your will? What if your hand falters, the blade glancing off instead of sinking true, and that split-second hesitation turns the hunter into the hunted? Failure isn't a gentle teacher in this world. It's a savage beast that claws at you with ropes, fire, and iron contraptions designed to make your end a spectacle for the masses. You freeze in the moment. Maybe the target stirs unexpectedly, their eyes widening in the candle's glow, or a child's soft murmur from the next room shakes your resolve like a leaf in a gale. Your knife hand trembles, unsteady as a reed in the wind, and suddenly the plan unravels, alarms ringing out like church bells tolling your doom. The air thickens with panic, your breath coming in shallow gasps, the taste of regret and sweat, as guards swarm like angry bees from a disturbed hive. You're no longer invisible. You're a glaring mistake. A wanted figure with a description spreading faster than wildfire through dry grass. Tallish, hooded, scar on the left cheek from that botched job last spring. Crude sketches appear on tavern walls overnight, nailed up with rusty spikes, your face distorted into something monstrous that even you wouldn't recognize in a mirror. The castle goes into lockdown, gate slamming shut with a finality that echoes in your chest, patrols doubling as if every shadow hides another like you. Your client? They disown you in a heartbeat, perhaps even putting out a contract on your head to erase the liability you've become. No apologies, no second chances, just the cold calculus of survival, where your failure makes you expendable. a loose thread snipped before it frays their tapestry. Public death awaits if they catch you, theatrical and drawn out to deter others. You're paraded through streets, crowds jeering softly in the torchlight, their voices a murmur that builds like distant thunder. Ropes stretch you on the rack, fire licks at stakes, or wheels crush bones with names like the Shatterer's Embrace. Devices that turn agony into art for the onlookers. It's not quick, it's a lesson. Your screams blending with the crackle of flames or the groan of timber. A sensory overload of smoke and pain that lingers in your nightmares, even now. Escape becomes obsession. You bolt through sewers reeking of waste, the slosh of water masking your footsteps, or hide in attics where dust chokes your throat like accusing fingers. But motivation surges in their ranks. Your botched attempt has made the target vengeful, offering gold for your head, turning every peasant into a potential informant. The shame burns deeper than any wound, a silent humiliation that coils in your gut like spoiled wine. You weren't just ineffective, you failed at being a ghost, at the perfection that defines your fragile existence. No one remembers the dozen successes. They etch the one miss into stone, your reputation crumbling like old parchment. Clients whisper of your unreliability, jobs drying up as you flee, always one step ahead of the noose. Torture looms if captured, not for mercy, but information. Who hired you? Why? How much? You practice final words in your mind, defiant phrases that might echo in ballads. But reality is messier, pleas bubbling up unbidden under the interrogator's tools. It's a cascade. One failure ripples outward, allies, if you had any, vanishing like mist, your name cursed in alehouses where once it inspired fear. Historians still argue whether failed assassins faced standardized punishments across regions or if local customs dictated the brutality, with some evidence from trial records suggesting variance based on the victim's status. A mainstream fact. In 13th century Sicily, under Frederick II's rule, botched regicides led to public flayings documented in legal codes, serving as deterrents during turbulent times. For a quirky fringe tidbit, obscure alpine folklore claims some escaped killers were cursed to wander as wraiths, their failures binding them to haunt the sites of their mistakes. Ghost stories, sure. But imagine your botch echoing eternally in those castle halls. The client's betrayal stings sharpest. You're no asset anymore, just a risk to be neutralized. They might send their hunters, fresher faces with your description tucked in pockets, turning the tables in a cruel twist. You run harder, legs burning like embers, through forests where branches snag like accusing hands, or across fields under moonless skies that feel oppressively close. Hunger gnaws as supplies dwindle, wounds fester without aid, each step a reminder that perfection was your only armor, now shattered. And let's whisper a soft joke. Failures like burning dinner. You meant well, but now the whole house smells, and everyone's pointing fingers while you scramble for the door. The isolation amplifies it. No one to confess to, no shoulder for the weight. Just you and the echoing what-ifs that keep sleep at bay. Repercussions extend beyond the physical. Your mind fractures under the strain, replaying the moment endlessly, like a bard stuck on a verse. What if you'd struck faster, chosen a different window? Doubt creeps in. eroding confidence for future jobs, if there are any. You shave your beard in streams, change gates to throw off trackers, but the hunted feeling lingers, a prickling at your neck like unseen eyes. Villages turn hostile. A farmer's glance holds suspicion. A child's point seals fates. You avoid roads, sticking to wild paths where berries sustain you, their tartness a bitter echo of lost coins. Modern aside, it's like bombing a job interview. Doors slam shut, and suddenly you're updating your resume in a panic. Except here, the stakes are your neck. The best you hope for in failure is a swift end, slipping away before torture extracts names. But often, it's drawn out, chained in dungeons where damp walls whisper defeats, rats skittering like tiny judges. Interrogators prod with questions and pokers, seeking connections that unravel networks you never had. Your legacy, a cautionary tale whispered to deter novices. Remember the fool who missed the baron, swung from the gates with a sign, almost doesn't count. It hardens you, if you survive. Next time, no hesitation, no mercy. But the scar remains, a mental notch like those on your blade, reminding you that in this shadow play, you're only as good as your last unseen step. And another gentle chuckle. Botching a kill is like spilling ink on a map. You meant to chart a path, but now everything's blurred, and you're lost in the mess you made. The pursuit intensifies, bounties rise, drawing opportunists who dream of your capture. You zigzag through terrains, mud sucking at boots like reluctant farewells, always glancing back. Failure reshapes you, forging caution from fear. But at what cost? The game restarts in a new town, under a new name. But the echo of that miss follows, a soft hum in your ears like wind through gallows. Quirky tales from Persian manuscripts hint at redemption rituals, where failed killers bathed in moonlight to cleanse bad luck, superstition. But you try it under a full moon, whispering pleas to stars that seem indifferent. Mainstream history notes the execution of would-be assassin Guy Fawkes in 1606, drawn and quartered for the gunpowder plot, though that's a later era, illustrating enduring spectacles. Debate lingers on whether such displays truly prevented crimes or fueled underground resentment. You don't dwell. Survival demands motion. The night deepens, your pulse steadying as you evade another patrol. The fatal price of failure, a shadow that spurs you onward, ever vigilant, ever alone. You felt the blade sink true, the target's gasp fading into a gurgle that blends with the rustle of curtains in the drafty chamber, a moment of eerie stillness before the world erupts around you. Success tastes metallic, like blood on your tongue, but there's no time to savor it. You bolt, boots whispering over stone floors slick with the deed, heart hammering like a blacksmith's forge in overdrive. The castle awakens in stages, a servant's muffled cry, boots thudding in corridors, torches flaring to life with pops that echo your racing pulse. You're not basking in triumph. You're a spark in a powder keg, fleeing through labyrinthine halls where every turn could lead to freedom or a dead end spiked with spears. The air thickens with shouts, the scent of pitch and fear mingling as guards mobilize, their armor clanking like discordant bells tolling your escape. No victory lap awaits, no debrief over warm mead with a nod of approval. You plan the exit meticulously, a hidden passage behind a tapestry, a rope dangling from a lesser guarded turret. But variables swarm like flies. A locked door you didn't anticipate, horses spooked in the stables across the courtyard, or your own blood-slick hands slipping on the latch. You vault a low wall, landing in mud that sucks at your heels like reluctant hands, the night air cool against your sweat-damp skin. The city locks down faster than a miser's purse. Gates creak shut, checkpoints sprout with lanterns swinging like accusatory eyes, patrols fanning out with descriptions that paint you as armed and dangerously stabby. You weave through back alleys, the stink of refuse masking your trail. But dogs bay in the distance, their noses keener than any blade you carry. Your client, their ghost now, vanished into the ether because a successful assassin knows too much, roots into forbidden places, secrets that could unravel empires. They might pay if you reach the drop, but more likely, they've set a trap, another shadow like you waiting to silence the one loose end. You clutch the coin pouch, its weight a mocking comfort, as you shave your beard in a stream's reflection, the cold water biting like judgment. Blend with monks heading east, you think, murmuring prayers you half remember from childhood, their robes a temporary shroud. But success paints a target on your back larger than before. Guards are motivated, rewards are posted, and every traveler's glance feels like scrutiny. You sleep in lofts or under bridges, the hum of crickets your only lullaby, flinching at every snap of twigs that might be pursuers. The adrenaline fades into exhaustion, like a candle guttering in its wax, leaving you hollow as you bribe a ferryman with coins that still smell of the Mark's chamber. He eyes you suspiciously, oar dipping softly into the river's murmur, but greed wins. He doesn't ask questions, just rows with grunts that match your weary sighs. A new city awaits, but so does the paranoia. Shave again, change your walk to a limp, adopt a new name that rolls off the tongue like a lie. Success doesn't mean safety. It resets the board, with more pieces hunting you this time. Rival killers, vengeful kin, or opportunistic bounty hunters drawn by tales of the ghost who struck the Baron. You avoid crowds, sticking to edges where shadows pool like ink, the world a blur of potential threats. Historians still argue whether successful assassinations in the Middle Ages truly altered political landscapes or merely shifted power to equally ruthless successors, with debates centering on events like the murder of Thomas Becket in 1170. A mainstream fact, the assassination of King Henry IV of France in 1610, though later, highlights how killers like François Ravaillac faced immediate pursuit and torture, their successes breeding intense manhunts documented in royal archives. For a quirky fringe tidbit, some forgotten Bavarian legends claim triumphant assassins were haunted by echo spirits, apparitions of their victims that whispered directions to pursuers, a supernatural twist on the guilt that already plagues your nights. The psychological grind deepens with each win, like layers of varnish on a coffin, sealing you in tighter. You replay the kill, not in glory, but scrutiny. Did a drop of blood stain the rug noticeably? Was that curtain rustle heard? Doubt nibbles at edges, like mice on cheese, eroding the brief high. Modern aside, it's like acing a test only to realize the professor's grading on a curve you didn't see coming. Sudden A+ turns into a target for cheater accusations. You hoard supplies in hidden caches, But moving means abandoning them, starting fresh with scant resources that dwindle faster than your trust in humanity. Bribes eat coins, safe houses turn unsafe with one loose-lipped landlord. Escape demands ingenuity. Pose as a leper to clear paths, their bells' soft chime warding off the curious, or hide in hay carts rumbling toward borders. The prickly straw a bed of nails for your nerves. But dogs track scents. Horses outpace your weary legs. And rivers swell with rains that force detours. You ford one, water tugging like insistent hands, emerging shivering on the far bank, where fog cloaks you briefly. A week of this, dodging, hiding, renaming, and you're a shell, eyes hollow as abandoned wells, the thrill soured into survival's bitter dregs. And let's murmur a gentle joke. Success is like winning the lottery, but instead of riches, you get a lifetime supply of running shoes and paranoia. Jackpot feels more like a trapdoor. Vengeance circles wider. The target's allies spread nets across regions, sketches traveling by messenger birds whose wings beat like accusations. You hear your alias whispered in inns, forcing abrupt departures mid-meal, the taste of stew turning to ash. No post-job drink to celebrate. Ale sours in your gut with every glance over your shoulder. The city you fled hums with lockdown echoes. Closed markets, heightened watches, a ripple that touches distant shores. You shave in the dark, fingers guiding the blade by feel, lest a nick betray you further. New dangers breed from old, a witness you overlooked, a bloodied glove left behind, turning success into a chain of chases. The game never pauses. One kill feeds the next hunger, but each victory shortens your leash. You ponder quitting in feverish moments, dreaming of a quiet farm where shadows don't lurk, but blood money's curse pulls you back. Another soft chuckle. It's ironic. You erase others from history, yet success writes your name in wanted lists, making you more visible than ever. Like a spotlight on a stage you never auditioned for. Safe houses become traps. You rotate them, but familiarity breeds complacency. A guard's routine you once exploited, now mirrored in your habits. Fringe whispers from Moorish tales suggest some assassins used victory amulets, carved from victims' bones, to ward off pursuit. Grisly superstition. But in desperate dawns, you'd consider it. Mainstream accounts from the Byzantine Empire detail how killers, like those targeting Emperor Michael III in 867, fled across borders, their successes sparking international hunts. Debate swirls on whether such feats empowered the underclasses or merely perpetuated cycles of violence. You don't philosophize. You run, breath-ragged, the night a canvas of new perils. Success breeds hunters, and you're the prey now, weaving through a web that tightens with every step. The horizon beckons, a new start mocking you, as dangers multiply like stars emerging in the deepening sky. One more light rib. Completing the job is like finishing a puzzle, only to realize the box lid shows a different picture, one with you in chains. You press on, the weight of achievement a burden, fleeing toward an uncertain dawn where safety feels as elusive as sleep. You've crossed that fog-shrouded river, the ferryman's oar-strokes fading into the murmur of current like a forgotten melody. But the chill of pursuit lingers on your skin, prickling like frost on glass as you venture into villages where eyes narrow and whispers follow. Now the real curse descends, not from blades or betrayals, but from the heavy shroud of superstition that cloaks you like an unwanted mantle, turning every glance into accusation and every tool into evidence of dark pacts. You're no mere killer in their eyes. You're a harbinger of doom, a whisperer to demons who smears toad slime on your dagger under moonlit oaks. Your presence enough to sour milk or wilt crops. The air in these hamlets hums with old tales, the scent of wood smoke mingling with fear as peasants cross themselves at your passing, muttering prayers that sound like soft accusations drifting on the breeze. It's not logic that hunts you here, but belief, wild and unchecked, blooming like weeds in untended fields. You slink through a village square, cloak pulled tight, but a woman clutches her babe tighter, hissing, "Don't look, he'll hex the child." Your dagger, practical and plain, becomes a relic forged in hellfire. Your poisons, simple herb brews, stirrings of witchcraft with severed toes and blood moons. Why else could you slip past guards like smoke, vanish into the night without a trace? Superstition fills the gaps where reason falters, painting you as a shapeshifter or invisible unless doused in holy water. You avoid eye contact, but it's futile. The fear spreads like ripples in a pond, turning neutral faces into mobs with stones and torches, their chants rising softly like wind through trees. Burn him before he calls the storm. The paranoia feeds on itself, a self-fulfilling fog that chokes your every move. Stay too long, and a sudden death, old age, accident, even a choked bone, Sparks whispers, "It was the Shadow Man, the one with the cursed blade." You're hunted not for proof, but suspicion, pitchforks gleaming in firelight as farmers rally, their faces twisted in righteous fury. No questions, no trial, just flames licking at stakes, the crackle blending with screams that echo your isolation. You flee again, legs heavy as lead, through fields where crops sway like judgmental spectators, the night sky vast and indifferent above. It's exhausting, this dance with myth, where your quiet steps are thunder to the fearful, your cleverness sorcery to the simple. Even your tools betray you in their minds. A rope for climbing becomes a devil's lasso, herbs in your pouch charms for death breathing through walls. You chuckle inwardly at the absurdity. Imagine being feared for frog guts when your real edge is just patience and shadows. But the mobs don't hesitate. They throw rocks that bruise like judgments, set fires that roar with misplaced zeal, shouting "sorcerer," as if your foreign accent or dried leaves seal your fate. Heaven forbid you carry anything odd, a strange coin from a far job, and it's a demon's token, a scar from a botch, proof of infernal bargains. The world believes monsters wear human skins, and you fit the mold, too quiet, too quick, too alive when others fall. Historians still argue whether medieval superstitions amplified assassin myths or if real events fueled the folklore, with debates on how witch hunts overlapped with hunts for political killers. A mainstream fact: in 14th century England during the Black Death, suspicious deaths were often blamed on poisoners tied to demonic pacts, as recorded in monastic chronicles that linked them to plague outbreaks. For a quirky fringe tidbit, some forgotten Catalan legends claim assassins could breathe death via enchanted pipes, escaping mobs by turning into mist. Pure fantasy, but picture dissolving into fog while villagers swing at air, their torches hissing in vain. The fear doesn't aid you as much as you'd hope. It isolates further, like salt in a wound, making alliances impossible and movements predictable. People avoid you, yes, but they also overreact. A priest rings bells at your shadow, drawing crowds faster than you can slip away. You keep moving, always, a perpetual wanderer in a land of fixed hearths, where staying means torches at dawn and accusations that burn hotter than fire. Sensory whispers haunt you, the sizzle of brands, the acrid smoke of pyres, the soft thud of stones on flesh. It's a world where logic sleeps and belief rules with an iron fist wrapped in prayer beads. And let's ease in a gentle jest. You're so cursed in their eyes, even cats cross the street to avoid you. Bad luck's got standards, apparently, and you're below them. Your reputation precedes you like a storm cloud. Villagers, muttering charms as you pass, their hands forming signs against evil that feel like invisible barriers. You adapt, travel by day to seem less spectral, mumble blessings to counter the witch label. But it's patchwork against a tapestry of dread. A foreign accent seals it. He's from the wilds, where spirits roam, turning your voice into evidence. You avoid churches, where holy water splashes like accusations, priests eyeing you with zeal that borders on hunger. The mobs form quickly, fueled by ale and tales, their pitchforks glinting like stars fallen to earth, chasing you into woods where branches snag like claws. The mental burden weighs like chains, each superstition a link that drags you down, turning solitude into a cage of echoes. You question your own shadow sometimes, half wondering if the tales hold truth. Did that full moon make your blade sharper? Doubt creeps softly, like dusk over hills, eroding your edge. Modern aside, it's like going viral for the wrong reasons. Sudden fame, but as the villain in everyone's feed, dodging digital torches and pitchforks, you press on, dodging the irrational with rational steps. But the curse clings, a soft hum in your ears like wind through gallows, reminding you that in this era, fear is the true assassin, silent and swift. Escapes from these chases demand wits. Dive into rivers to wash curses, or hide in barns where animals' warmth masks your presence. But fatigue sets in, legs leaden, breath ragged as mobs fade behind. You emerge in new lands, but the pattern repeats. Whispers, stares, the slow build to frenzy, and another soft chuckle. Superstition makes you a celebrity without perks. No autographs, just wanted posters and free pitchfork pokes, the original fan mob gone wrong. The heavy curse shapes your path, forcing endless motion, a life of perpetual twilight, where belief's blade cuts deeper than steel. Priests lead the charge often, bells tolling like a summons, their robes billowing in the wind that carries chants. You evade, slipping through underbrush, where thorns draw blood like tiny judgments, the pain a reminder of vulnerability. No rational debate sways them. Faith's armor deflects logic, turning your existence into heresy. You ponder the irony softly. You deal in quiet ends, yet they make you a loud legend, a demon in daylight tales. One more light rib. Dodging mobs is like avoiding spoilers for a story you're living. Everyone knows your ending, but you're flipping pages frantically to change it. The scholarly debate questions whether such beliefs deterred crime or inflated assassin numbers through false accusations, muddying historical counts. Mainstream witch trial records from Salem analogues in Europe show overlap with poisoner hunts, blending magic with murder. Fringe Slavic stories whisper of assassins allying with forest spirits for protection, trading souls for evasion, enchanting, but you'd settle for a kind word over spectral deals. You trudge onward, the curse a companion as unwelcome as rain, dodging the irrational in a world where shadows like yours are forever tainted. The night deepens, villages recede, but the weight remains, a soft pressure urging you into deeper isolation, where even stars seem to judge from afar. You've dodged those torch-wielding mobs, their chants fading into the rustle of leaves like a bad dream dissolving at dawn. But the taint of their superstitions clings to you, a soft itch under your skin that makes every herb you touch feel like forbidden fruit. Now, let's turn to your most treacherous ally, poison, that sly whisper of a weapon, promising elegance without the mess of steel, but delivering more headaches than a tavern brawl. You hunch over a makeshift workbench in some forgotten glade, the moonlight filtering through branches like silvery fingers as you grind nightshade and mushrooms into a paste that smells earthy and ominous, hoping this brew will slip past tasters and end your mark with a quiet sigh. It's not the dramatic drip into a goblet from legends. It's a gamble where the house always seems to win, the mixture bubbling softly in a clay vial that could just as easily turn on you with a misplaced whiff or a careless spill. Reliability. That's a joke in itself. Your poisons are as predictable as a summer storm, brewed from whatever you forage, plants that wilt in your pouch, minerals scraped from cave walls, or the occasional toad secretion that leaves your fingers tingling like they've been kissed by frost. You eyeball the doses, a pinch here, a drop there, whispering calculations to yourself in the hush of night, because there's no alchemist's scale or recipe book for outcasts like you. Too little, and the noble just clutches their belly, vomiting through the night and emerging angrier, with doubled guards and a newfound hatred for soup. Too much, and the fumes knock you flat before you even apply it, leaving you dazed in the dirt, stars spinning overhead like mocking fireflies. You test it cautiously, a dab on your tongue that burns like regret, or on a captured mouse that twitches and stills. But humans are fickle, their bodies resisting or amplifying in ways that turn your art into chaos. Kitchens become your battlefield, chaotic realms of steam and clatter where you sneak in disguised as a scullion, the sizzle of meats and bubble of pots masking your soft footsteps. You can't just waltz up and sprinkle death into the stew. Bribes to cooks cost coins you don't have, or impersonations that strain your nerves like taut bowstrings. Slip it into the wine, and watch as tasters, stewards, jesters, even dogs sample first. Their reactions are tense weight in the shadows. The dog might yelp and collapse, alerting everyone, or the taster survives with a grimace, waving the goblet through. Nobles treat meals like sieges, blessed by priests, sniffed by hounds, passed through security tighter than a royal vault. By the time it reaches the table, your poison's journey is a miracle if it arrives potent, the flavors masking its bitterness or not. One off taste, and the whole feast halts, eyes turning suspicious, like lanterns in fog. The unpredictability unfolds in waves, like ripples on a pond after a tossed stone. Your mark might laugh at a jest one moment, then stagger hours later, clutching their throat as foam flecks their lips, the room erupting in soft cries and accusations. Or it drags on for days, a slow wilt that gives them time to summon healers, point fingers at the quiet herbalist who vanished. Survival means blame shifts to you, the twitchy outsider with knowledge of weeds, leading to hunts that make previous chases feel like strolls. Interrogation awaits if caught, tools twisting confessions from your lips, admitting to poisoning dukes and dogs alike. Your end, a public unraveling under the executioner's gaze. It's risky, this art. Slow when you need swift, messy when you crave clean. And variables abound. A draft diluting the dose, a full stomach slowing absorption, turning your precision into prayer. Historians still argue whether medieval poisons were more myth than method, debating if their unreliability stemmed from crude science or deliberate exaggeration in chronicles to heighten drama. A mainstream fact: in 12th century Italy, during the reign of Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, court physicians documented arsenic use in political killings, often mixed with wine, as evidenced in surviving medical treatises that warned of symptoms like abdominal fire. For a quirky fringe tidbit, obscure Welsh apothecary lore whispers of fairy tears, poisons derived from dew on enchanted mushrooms, said to kill without a trace, but only under a crescent moon. A superstition that might explain why some assassins timed jobs by lunar phases, adding celestial whimsy to their grim craft. You carry antidotes sometimes, bitter roots chewed preemptively that leave your mouth numb like after a bad ale. But they're as trustworthy as a client's word, effective against some toxins, useless against others, turning your body into a testing ground. Exposure risks haunt you. A splash on skin-raising blisters that itch like accusations, or vapors clouding your vision mid-brew, forcing a stumble into thorns that draw blood like tiny judgments. It's a delicate dance, this poisoning, where finesse meets folly, and one wrong step leaves you retching in bushes while your target toasts their health. And let's slip in a gentle jest. Brewing poison's like cooking for picky eaters. You think it's perfect, but one bite, and they're complaining to the heavens, or worse, sending the chef to join them. The aftermath varies wildly, a lottery where you draw the ticket blind. Instant drops are rare gems, the mark slumping silently over their plate. But more often, it's a spectacle. Convulsions that rattle silverware, gasps that summon guards faster than you can fade. You wait in alcoves, breath held like a secret, timing your exit amid the chaos. The kitchen's clamor, now a cover for your soft retreat. But survival breeds suspicion. A recovered victim means intensified hunts. They're astrologers divining your face in stars, or worse, a vow of vengeance that echoes through courts. You avoid stews forever after, the memory of that botched batch lingering like a bad aftertaste, turning every meal into a wary sniff. Variables pile up like stacked firewood, ready to ignite. Kitchens guarded by watchful eyes, dogs with noses keener than your blade, or meals blessed with holy water that supposedly neutralizes evil, superstition blending with strategy to foil you. You improvise, code arrows for distance, or dust letters that the mark might handle, but skin absorption's slow, giving time for alarm. It's inefficient, this method, demanding patience you scarcely have, the slow burn of effects mirroring your own creeping doubts. Modern aside, it's like sending a glitchy email. You hit send, but delivery fails, or worse, it bounces back with errors that crash your whole system. You refine recipes in solitude, adding minerals for speed, but trial means error, and error means risk. A cycle that wears you thin like overused parchment. Caught with vials? That's a ticket to the Inquisitor's chamber. Tools probing until you spill recipes and names. Your end not swift, but educational for the crowd. You pour carefully, hands steady as whispers, but nerves fray like old rope. One tremble, spilling doom on yourself, and another soft chuckle. Poisons the introvert's weapon. Quiet, subtle, avoids confrontation. But when it backfires, it's like your shy friend suddenly yelling secrets at a party, drawing all the wrong attention. The art demands a strong stomach, literally and figuratively, as you ingest traces to build tolerance. Each swallow a soft burn that steels you against mishaps. Fringed tales from Byzantine scrolls hint at eternal sleep, elixirs mixed with dragon's blood. Mythical nonsense, but in desperate brews, you'd add anything for potency. Mainstream poisonings, like that of King John of England in 1216, allegedly with toad venom in ale, show how unpredictability led to debated causes, blending fact with rumor. Debate rages on whether such methods were preferred for deniability or avoided for their flaws. Muddying assassin efficacy in records, you don't debate. You mix, apply and pray. The vial's cool glass a promise that might kill or cure. The night deepens, your brew complete, ready for the next gamble where hope flickers like a candle in the wind, threatening to snuff out before the target does. You slink away from that glade, the vial of murky brew tucked safely in your pouch, its weight a subtle reminder of gambles past and perils ahead, as the forest thins into rolling hills where ancient echoes seem to stir in the wind. Before long, those whispers coalesce into a new tale, drawing you toward the rugged lands of Epirus, where a princess named Myrtale, later known as Olympias, emerges from the mists of myth and ritual, her life entwined with serpents and prophecies that feel as alive as the coils around her wrists. You imagine her as a young girl, not simpering over tapestries in some gilded hall, but wandering barefoot through moonlit groves, drawn to the frenzied dances of Dionysus's cult, where women channel the divine in ecstatic trances, their voices rising softly like wind through reeds. She's no ordinary royal. Her veins pulse with claims of descent from Achilles, that legendary warrior whose blood runs hot with heroism, and whether it's truth or tale, shapes her into a force that refuses the sidelines of history. The air in these tribal highlands carries the scent of pine and incense, sacred fires flickering in shrines where omens are read in the curl of smoke or the slither of snakes. You picture Myrtale, Olympias in the making, steeped in this world, her upbringing a blend of politics and the arcane, where priestesses murmur secrets older than stone. She doesn't worship from afar. She embodies it, allowing sacred serpents to coil in her chambers, perhaps even sharing her bed as ancient sources claim, their scales whispering against silk in the quiet hours. Is it literal, or the kind of slander powerful women attract like shadows. The tales stick either way. To allies, she's divine, touched by gods; to enemies, dangerous, a witch weaving spells in the dark. You feel the intrigue building, like tension in a bowstring, as her power blooms not from swords or thrones, but from torch-lit whispers among those who revere the ancient ways. Her presence, a living oracle that commands respect and fear in equal measure. Her real ascent begins on the island of Samothrace, amid religious initiations where mysteries unfold under star-strewn skies. The sea's soft murmur, a backdrop to rites that bind the mortal to the eternal. Enter Philip II of Macedon, that brutal, brilliant king with ambitions as vast as the horizons he conquers, and a reputation for collecting wives like battlefield trophies. You sense the collision coming, a man of iron and conquest meeting a woman of prophecy and serpents, their union sparked in the flicker of sacred flames. It's no mere political match. Omens swirl around it, lightning cracking the wedding night sky. Olympias dreaming of thunderbolts entering her womb, flames dancing harmlessly around her. Philip seals her womb with a lion in his visions, symbols that scream destiny louder than any herald. Their marriage births not just a child, but Alexander the Great, and you can almost hear Olympias vowing to shape his fate from his first cry, her eyes fierce as a storm over the Aegean. The palace in Pella becomes her domain, a combustible mix of pride and paranoia, where she navigates the rocky terrain of a union built on ambition rather than affection. You tread carefully through these halls in your mind's eye, the marble cool underfoot, echoes of footsteps blending with the distant clash of arms as Philip campaigns endlessly, his charisma drawing him to other brides for alliances that sting like barbs. Olympias, still young but wise beyond her years, holds her court, weaving ties with oracles and allies, her spiritual depth a shield against the slights. She's not naive. She sees Philip's wandering eye as a threat, but also a mirror to her unyielding drive. Their child's birth wraps in celestial drama, flames that don't burn, visions that proclaim divinity, and you feel the cracks forming, resentment simmering like a pot left too long on the fire, especially with Philip's later marriage to Cleopatra Eurydice, a Macedonian pureblood whose son could challenge Alexander's claim. Exile doesn't break her, it tempers her like steel in a forge. You follow her retreat to Epirus, the landscape rugged and familiar, where she gathers support among kin, her whispers spreading like vines, undermining Philip from afar. The palace rots without her, rivalries festering. And then the shock. Philip's assassination at his daughter's wedding, a dagger strike that halts his Persian invasion in its tracks. Whispers swirl softly. Was it the bodyguard, Pausanias, court intrigue, Alexander himself? Or, dare you think it, Olympias pulling strings from the shadows? No proof, but belief lingers, her serpent legacy making anything seem possible. Within days, Cleopatra and her infant perish, accounts chilling. Forced suicide after witnessing horror, or thrown into flames. Mercy absent in Olympia's calculated purge. You sense her hand, symbolic and ruthless, clearing the path for her son with blood that stains but secures. Alexander ascends, a teenager trained by Aristotle, his charisma blazing. But you know it's Olympias engineering from behind, threatening generals, flattering nobles, removing threats with a priestess's poise. He might disapprove of the violence, but he doesn't stop it, understanding power's bloody price as she taught him. She recedes slightly as he conquers, but her influence whispers through letters, advising, warning, chastising his Persian fascinations or divine claims. Back in Macedon, she clashes with Regent Antipater, her letters to Alexander painting him as a traitor, the rift widening like a chasm under strain. You feel her impatience building, a mother and queen mother unwilling to fade, her rituals and relics sent to guard his divine mission. News of Alexander's death in Babylon hits like a thunderclap, the empire fracturing as generals carve it like jackals at a feast. You grieve with her, not just a son lost, but a world she built crumbling. No clear heir, only chaos. Her grandson, Alexander IV, born to Roxana, becomes her weapon and ward, vulnerable in a sea of ambition. She allies with the widow, plotting against Cassander, Antipater's cold son, as civil war brews. Returning to Macedon with an army, towns yield, soldiers defect, her vengeance swift, executing rivals, strangling the puppet king Philip III Aridaeus and his wife, staging justice like a goddess descended. For a fleeting moment, she holds the reins, restoring the bloodline with teeth bared, nothing left to lose. But tides turn. Cassander strikes back, besieging her in Pydna's fortress, hunger gnawing as allies flee. You endure the year with her, food scarce, disease creeping, yet she stands unbowed, regal in rags. Surrender comes, but Cassander hesitates. Killing Alexander's mother feels like blasphemy. He hands her to victims' kin, who condemn her, but executioners falter, awed by her myth, unable to strike. Foreigners finish it, silent and undignified, her end marking the dynasty's fade. Yet history remembers, architect of empire, ruthless guardian, wrapped in prophecy and snakes, you ponder her legacy, a woman who wielded motherhood like a sword, outliving gods in tales of blood-borne destiny. Historians still argue whether Olympias truly orchestrated Philip's death, or if it was opportunistic blame on a powerful woman. A mainstream fact, ancient sources like Plutarch detail her serpent affinity, linking it to Dionysian cults active in Epirus during the 4th century BCE. Quirky fringe. Some Byzantine texts claim she communed with snakes for prophecies, their hisses revealing futures. Whimsy. But imagine her bed an oracle's nest, scales whispering secrets that shaped empires. You fade into her shadow, the serpent queen coiled eternally, her story a calming whisper as night deepens. You've lingered in the echo of Olympia's coiled legacy, her serpentine whispers still slithering through your thoughts, like vines claiming an ancient ruin as you step deeper into the marbled corridors of Pella, where the air hangs thick with incense and intrigue, and her ruthless grip on power turns the palace into a battlefield of veiled smiles and hidden daggers. Here, in this warren of ambition, you navigate the treacherous currents of court life alongside her, every glance a potential alliance or betrayal, as she fights not just for influence, but for survival itself. Her teenage son Alexander, already a pawn in games that demand blood and unyielding cunning. The walls seem to lean in, whispering secrets of cousins turned killers and brothers eyeing thrones. The soft clink of goblets masking the sharper edge of paranoia that defines Macedonian royalty. Olympias doesn't flinch. She thrives in it. Her priestess robes a cloak for the steel beneath, turning exile into strategy when Philip distances himself, his campaigns and conquests pulling him away while she builds her web from afar. The marriage to Cleopatra Eurydice strikes like a thunderbolt, not the divine kind from her dreams, but a declaration of war that cracks the royal facade wide open. You feel the tension build in the feast hall, torches flickering softly like hesitant witnesses as Attalus mocks her and Alexander's legitimacy with drunken slurs, questioning if the boy is Philip's or Zeus's own, an insult she seizes like a serpent striking, amplifying the myth to make her son untouchable, a demigod among mortals. She storms to Epirus, but it's no defeat. It's a regrouping, her homeland a forge where she tempers support, stirring opposition that festers back in Pella. Philip's assassination hits amid wedding revels, the dagger's thrust halting his Persian dreams, and you can't help but wonder at the timing, the whispers pointing fingers that she deftly dodges, her return swift and surgical. Cleopatra and her child vanish in horrors that chill the air, hanged after witnessing infanticide, or roasted alive. Mercy a stranger in her calculated cleanse, ensuring no rival bloodline threatens her divine heir. Alexander's crowning feels inevitable, his brilliance shining under Aristotle's tutelage. But you know it's her hand guiding the shadows, threats to wavering generals, flattery to nobles, quiet removals of those who hesitate. He ascends without contest, yet disapproves of the brutality against Cleopatra's kin, his youth clashing with her pragmatism, though he doesn't intervene, grasping that thrones are built on bones as much as banners. She steps back as he marches east, but her letters flow like a river, advising on loyalties, criticizing his Persian wives and god claims, her maternal chiding laced with oracles that remind him his victories stem from divine favor she channels. In Macedon, she rules in spirit, if not name, undermining Regent Antipater with rumors of ambition, painting him as a betrayer ready to usurp, her impatience simmering like a pot on low flame, unwilling to bow to an old soldier's command. The palace pulses with her energy, shrines to gods tucked in corners where she performs rituals, sacred relics sent to Alexander like talismans against fate. You sense the rift widening, her warnings urgent as he drifts toward Eastern customs, but he hesitates, needing stability at home while conquering afar. She's no retiring queen mother. She's the guardian serpent, coiled and vigilant, her epirote ties and religious authority weapons sharper than swords. Alexander's death in Babylon shatters it all, the news arriving like a dagger's twist, his empire splintering as successors circle like vultures. No heir clear, only the infant Alexander IV with Roxana, vulnerable amid the storm. You ally with her as she protects the boy, using his bloodline as shield and sword against Cassandra's ice-cold grasp. The civil war inevitable in this vacuum of power. Her bold return to Macedon at the head of an army feels like destiny's surge, towns yielding softly like pages turning in an ancient scroll, soldiers defecting to the mother of the great. Vengeance flows, loyalists hunted, Philip III and Eurydice executed in staged justice, her theatrical flair making it a divine reckoning. For a breath, she holds the kingdom, dynasty restored in blood, a woman with fire in her veins and nothing to forfeit. But Cassander counters, his forces overwhelming, besieging her in Pydna, where walls stand firm but supplies dwindle, disease whispering through the ranks like a traitor's breath. You endure the siege with her, hunger a constant companion, allies slipping away like sand through fingers, yet her presence unyielding, a statue of wrath in the fading light. Surrender comes, but Cassander wavers, the myth of Alexander's mother too potent for easy slaughter. It borders on sacrilege. He defers to the bereaved families, their verdict of death. But executioners pause, swords hovering as her regal stare pierces like an oracle's gaze. Macedonians raised on her legends, unable to strike the first blow. Outsiders finish it, dignity stripped in the dust. Her fall, the final snuff of the bloodline's flame. Yet you linger on her echo, a queen who bent prophecy to will, sleeping beside snakes and forging empires from myth. Her story enduring in ruthless matriarchs and destinies written in stars. Historians still argue whether Olympias' rituals were genuine spiritual devotion or calculated theatre to intimidate rivals, with evidence from ancient texts split on her authenticity. A mainstream fact, Plutarch's biographies confirm her involvement in the cult of Dionysus, active in the 4th century BCE, where ecstatic rites empowered women in otherwise patriarchal societies. Quirky fringe. Some later Roman accounts claim she could command snakes to guard treasures, their hisses warding off thieves. A tall tale. But imagine her chambers a living vault, scales glinting like forbidden gold. The palace games demand cunning you admire from afar, blood spilled softly like wine at banquets. Her son's throne a prize won through shadows. And let's ease in a gentle jest. Navigating court is like a family dinner where everyone's eyeing the last slice of pie, except the pie's a crown, and losers get the pointy end of the fork. Her letters to Alexander carry venom for foes, her maternal love a blade honed sharp. You feel the power plays unfold, alliances shifting like sands. Her epirote roots a lifeline in the fray. Antipater resents her meddling, but she persists, a priestess queen whose oracles outmaneuver armies. As Alexander conquers, she guards from afar, but his death unleashes the storm. Her protection of the grandson, a final stand against erasure. The siege wears on, resolve tested like gold in fire. Her end undramatic, but her impact eternal. Another soft chuckle. She's the original helicopter parent, hovering with prophecies and purges, ensuring her boy's homework, conquering the world, gets done, even if it means grounding rivals permanently. Cassander's victory feels hollow, her myth outliving his grasp. The blood and cunning define her court, a soft hum of ambition that echoes through time. One more light rib. In this palace, trust is rarer than an honest politician. Everyone's scheming, but Olympias does it with style, snakes and all. You drift through her world. The throne's demands a lullaby of intrigue, where victory whispers and defeat silences forever. You felt the palace intrigues of Pella fade into the distance, the marble halls giving way to sun-bleached shores where the Aegean laps softly against Crete's rugged edges, drawing you toward Knossos, that sprawling ruin where stone corridors twist like forgotten dreams, and the line between myth and mortar blurs into something almost alive. You wander these ancient paths under a relentless Mediterranean sun, the air shimmering with heat and the faint scent of olive groves, each step crunching on dust that's held secrets for millennia. It's not just a palace, it's a city folded in on itself, rooms looping into courtyards that open unexpectedly to the sky, staircases spiraling to nowhere, and light wells piercing the heart like shafts of forgotten sunlight. You trace a finger along frescoed walls where dolphins leap in eternal play, feeling the cool plaster under your palm, and wonder if this organized chaos was deliberate, designed to awe or confound, a Bronze Age marvel that makes modern mazes feel like children's play. The layout disorients gently, corridors branching without warning, wings folding back on themselves in layers that whisper of purpose, workshops here, shrines there, all orbiting a central courtyard where rituals might have unfolded under starry skies. You imagine the Minoans moving through it with ease, their flounced skirts rustling softly. But as a visitor, you're lost in the flow, turning corners that lead to dead ends or sudden vistas of the sea. No defensive walls loom high. This place trusted its island isolation, or projected power so subtly it needed none, a testament to a civilization that ruled through trade and art rather than iron fists. The architecture breathes ingenuity, multi-story buildings with colonnaded halls, passive ventilation cooling the air like a natural sigh, and plumbing that flushed away worries long before empires rose and fell elsewhere. You pause in the so-called throne room, eyeing the alabaster seat flanked by griffin frescoes, guardians of myth staring back with unblinking eyes. Was this a king's perch, a priestess's sanctum, or something in between, where divine and daily intertwined? Knossos spans vast, nearly 150,000 square feet of nested chambers, its design hiding intelligence in apparent whimsy, rainwater channeled through clay pipes, air shafts drawing breezes like invisible hands. You descend stairs that curve unexpectedly, emerging into sunlit spaces where nature invades softly, vines creeping over ruins as if reclaiming their own. The art speaks volumes without words, vibrant frescoes of blooming lilies, birds in flight, youths vaulting bulls in graceful arcs that blend danger with dance. It's not war depicted here, but life's rhythm, fluid, natural, connected to earth and sea in ways that feel almost serene. You stand before the bull-leaping scene, muscles tensing as if you're mid-vault, the animal's horns stylized into symbols of consecration atop walls, hinting at reverence for chaos tamed. The Minoans celebrated the bull, not feared it. Their culture was a tapestry of fertility and renewal, snakes in goddesses' hands symbolizing rebirth rather than venom. Yet the mystery deepens with each turn. Linear, a script etched on tablets, remains undeciphered, a silent language that teases with untranslated prayers or tallies, leaving you to interpret through symbols alone. The double axe, or labrys, appears everywhere, carved in stone, painted on pots, a religious emblem tied to female divinity or celestial cycles, perhaps giving the labyrinth its name as House of the Double Axe. Not a trap, but a sacred space. You ponder the snake goddesses unearthed in storerooms, bare-breasted figures with serpents coiled like living jewelry, radiating power that suggests matriarchal echoes in a world of gods and renewal. The palace feels like a ritual engine, shrines woven into the fabric, boundaries between sacred and secular dissolved in stone and color. No grand temple stands apart. Knossos itself is the temple, corridors, passages to the divine, every echo a potential prayer murmured in the dim. The myth of the minotaur creeps in softly, that half-man, half-bull, trapped in a labyrinth so convoluted, none escaped without thread and cunning. You trace the tale's roots here, where bull motifs dominate, frescoes showing leaps that might symbolize triumph over beastly forces. King Minos, perhaps a real ruler or title, demanding Athenian tribute. Youths fed to the monster. Mirrors Crete's dominance over the Aegean. Tributes paid in fear and goods. To ancient Greeks, this place was alien elegance. Seafaring Minoans, with strange gods inspiring stories of grandeur and hiding savagery. You wander deeper, the disorienting design fueling the legend. Not an underground prison, but the palace itself, a maze, complex enough to birth monsters in visitors' minds. The bull as metaphor, raw power beneath sophistication, or psychological depths where heroes confront inner beasts, guided by Ariadne's thread, like memory through the unconscious. Archaeologist Arthur Evans unearthed it all in the early 1900s, his excavations peeling back soil to reveal this Bronze Age wonder, naming the civilization Minoan after the mythic king, convinced that the bull symbols and layout birthed the labyrinth tale. You feel his flair in the reconstructions, concrete reinforcements blending old and new, controversial but visionary, bringing life to stones that slept for millennia. The site sprawls, artifacts like golden bull charms glinting in your imagination, but no literal maze or monster, just a place that invited awe. Its fall around 1400 BCE, a whisper of catastrophe. Volcanic eruption on Thera sends tsunamis crashing softly in your mind, ash clouds choking skies, or Mycenaean invaders absorbing the culture, linear B replacing A as art turns martial. The end came quietly, no mass graves or charred bones, just abandonment as nature reclaimed, frescoes fading like memories. Homer's epics echo it later. Crete, a land of wealth and fear, the myth tangled in ruins that Evans woke. You stand amid the bones, questions humming like bees. Was the Minotaur history's shadow, or the palace the true beast? Sensory details envelop, warm stone underfoot, sea breeze sighing through gaps, the soft hum of tourists like ancient echoes. Modern aside, it's like exploring a video game level designed to glitch your map. Turn left for dolphins, right for dead ends. And suddenly, you're questioning if the exit's a myth too. Historians still argue whether Knossos was a palace, temple complex, or administrative hub, debating whether its layout reflects religious symbolism or practical evolution. A mainstream fact, Evans' excavations from 1900 onward revealed over 1,000 rooms, with advanced plumbing systems predating similar Roman innovations by centuries, as detailed in his multi-volume reports. Quirky fringe, Some esoteric theories claim the site aligns with constellations, corridors mapping stars for astral rituals, a celestial maze where Minoans navigated heavens as they did halls. You chuckle softly at the thought. Wandering Knossos is like being in an Inanna escape room where the designer forgot the clues. Half the fun's getting lost, the other half pretending you meant to. The symbols persist: horns on rooftops, axes in shrines, perhaps cosmic order or fertility rites, the bull a bridge between earth and underworld. Another gentle jest. If the minotaur lived here, he'd complain about the rent. Prime location, but lousy navigation, always bumping into walls mid-rage. The spiritual hum lingers, rituals in every corner, snake goddess, S-guardians of transformation. The palace a living myth that defies solving. Debate aside, you drift through, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows that dance like forgotten dancers. One more light rib. Knossos proves history's the ultimate prankster. Build a fancy house, and folks turn it into monster real estate for eternity. The ruins invite feeling over facts. A question in stone that pulls you deeper. A thread unraveling softly into the unknown. You've meandered through the tangled paths of Knossos, the stone walls releasing you into the open air where the sea breeze carries hints of salt and forgotten voyages. But now the ground trembles under the weight of colossal machines, siege engines that rise like behemoths from the annals of war. Their creaks and groans a symphony of destruction echoing across battlefields where walls once stood defiant. You stand at the edge of a besieged city, the dust kicking up softly under your feet as battering rams lumber forward, tree trunks sheathed in iron and swung by teams of grunting soldiers, smashing against gates with rhythmic thuds that reverberate like thunder in your chest. These aren't crude clubs, they're evolved terrors, mounted in wheeled frames with protective roofs of wet hides to fend off arrows and scalding oil, the Assyrians perfecting them into psychological nightmares that announce surrender or ruin. You watch as the pointed tip breaches a weak spot, splinters flying like confetti from a grim celebration. The defenders above hurling stones that bounce harmlessly off the shelter, their desperation palpable in the air thick with smoke and sweat. The evolution feels inevitable. From handheld logs to these mobile fortresses, the Greeks refining the swing with chains for momentum, the Romans turning them into aeries that could topple towers or collapse gatehouses in hours. You imagine the operators inside, sweat-slicked and synchronized, their chants blending with the ram's impact, a brute force that weaponizes physics against human ingenuity. But it's not just physical, it's mental warfare, the relentless pounding wearing down spirits as much as stone, making defenders question their resolve with every shuddering blow. A stalled ram invites disaster, fire arrows setting it ablaze or boulders crushing the frame. But when it charges unchecked, cities weep, breaches opening like wounds that invite the horde. You chuckle softly at the irony. All that engineering for something as simple as knocking. But in war, politeness ends at the gate, and these rams kick down doors with the subtlety of a stampede. Catapults join the fray, launching from afar with a whoosh that cuts the tension like a knife through silk, stones arcing gracefully before crashing with bone-jarring force. You trace their origins to Dionysius of Syracuse in the 4th century BCE, his torsion springs of sinew or hair storing energy like coiled serpents. releasing bolts or boulders hundreds of yards away. The ballista hurls massive darts like a giant crossbow, pinning shields or piercing walls, while stone throwers lob payloads that crater battlements or terrorize those behind. Romans improved them, disassembling for transport and reassembling on site, their 60-pound rocks tearing through defenses with precision that feels almost unfair. But it's the spectacle that breaks wills. Corpses catapulted to spread disease, severed heads to shatter morale, or flaming pitch that lights the night like false stars. You feel the dread building, defenders peering over parapets, the sky no longer safe, and each launches a message that resistance crumbles under the weight and whimsy. The trebuchet towers above them all, a majestic giant relying on gravity's pull, its long arms swinging with a counterweight that drops like judgment from above, flinging 300-pound stones in high arcs that sail over walls with eerie grace. You sense its roots in Chinese traction models from centuries earlier, evolving to counterweight designs in the 12th century via Byzantine or Muslim paths, spreading through Europe like a plague of ingenuity. The power astonishes, projectiles raining on inner courtyards, barracks, or depots, not just breaching, but invading the heart. Diseased animals, burning pots, even taunts wrapped around rocks. The war wolf at Stirling Castle was so massive, the Scots surrendered pre-fire, only for the king to test it anyway. You reload slowly, winches creaking softly under strain, but the psychological hammer falls hard. The counterweights thunk, a heartbeat of doom that makes cities hold their breath. Siege towers roll in next, wooden skyscrapers on wheels, bristling with archers and covered in hides against flames, a personal delivery of invaders right to the ramparts. You envision the Assyrian origins, Hellenistic giants like the Helepolis soaring 100 feet, iron-plated and catapult-armed, though its weight doomed it. The logic shines. Walls lose advantage when bridged at height, gangplanks dropping troops onto battlements in a surge of steel and shouts. Defenders counter with ditches, floods, or inner walls. But success means chaos. Your parapets suddenly swarming, the fight vertical and visceral, tunneling undermines from below. Sappers digging silently to prop and burn supports, collapsing foundations in a rumble that swallows stone like earth reclaiming its own. You hear the claustrophobic clashes in counter-tunnels, knives flashing by torchlight. The Spartans at Plataea turning soil into slaughter. Defenders fight back with ingenuity. Greek fire spewing napalm that burns on water, boiling sand slipping into armor cracks, or gravity's gifts like logs dropped from heights. It's attrition. Delays buying time for relief or surrender. The siege is a game where creativity meets cruelty. The psychological edge cuts deepest. Engines paraded to instill dread, payloads carrying messages of despair. The Mongol plague corpses at Kaffa, perhaps birthing the Black Death. You sense the mind breaking before masonry. Fear, the ultimate besieger. Gunpowder shifts it all. Cannons shattering walls in seconds. What trebuchets took days. Legacies evolving into modern artillery where physics still reigns. Trajectory, force, tension perfected long ago. Ruins like Masada's ramps or Constantinople's layers tell the tale. Principles echoing in drones and firewalls today. Sieges persist, blockades digital or media, the soul unchanged. One side wants in, the other holds out, waiting, building, breaking. Historians still argue whether siege engines revolutionized warfare or merely amplified existing tactics, debating their role in falls like Troy's mythic end. A mainstream fact: Roman engineer Vitruvius detailed catapult designs in his 1st century BCE treatises, influencing medieval builds documented in siege manuals. Quirky fringe. Some Arabic texts claim early trebuchets used jinn weights, counterbalances enchanted for extra force, a mystical twist on gravity's pull. You chuckle softly. These machines are history's bullies, poking walls until they cry uncle. But in the end, spirits crack first. Another gentle jest. Battering rams are the original door-to-door salesmen. Persistent, loud, and nobody wants what they're selling. One more light rib. Catapults fling insults with rocks. Medieval trolling at its finest. As the echoes of creaking wood and shattering stone fade into the quiet of the night, you feel the weight of history settling softly around you, like a blanket drawn close. The tales of assassins slipping through shadows, Olympias weaving her serpentine destinies, the labyrinthine whispers of knossos, and these mighty engines that bent the will of cities, all blend into a gentle haze, the adventures unwinding like thread from a spool. Let the images drift now, the blades dulling, the prophecies softening, the mazes straightening into peaceful paths under a starry sky. Breathe deeply. The fans hum a soothing companion, carrying away the day's excitements on its steady whisper. No more chases or conquests tonight, just the calm embrace of rest, where dreams wander freely without peril or pursuit. You've journeyed far, witnessed the grit and grandeur of ages past, but now it's time to ease back. Let eyelids grow heavy and surrender to the night's tender hold. Sweet dreams await, uncomplicated and serene, as the world outside quiets to match the peace within.